Good morning, Mr. Davis.
Good morning.
What do you think has been revealed this week about the policy on boats and accommodating asylum seekers?
Well, I mean, the primary thing that's been revealed has been the startling incompetence of the Home Office itself. I mean, rather famously, many years ago, John Reid, when he took over as Home Secretary, talked about it as being not fit for purpose. And I'm afraid you're seeing that here. I mean, it's really, really hard to understand how at all layers this could not be caught early, this sort of the Legionnaire's disease issue. But the other issue it shows up is, I think, a rather more generic incompetence. I mean, as your correspondent said, even working properly, the Bibby barge would only take effectively one day's arrivals. So it's not a solution to the problem. And all of this is going to go on until the Home Office manages to process these arrivals more quickly. You may remember a little while ago it was shown that I think it was 1.4 arrivals or asylum cases per week were dealt with by one caseworker. Well, that's ridiculous.
But what do you think that could be got down to, the process of arrivals? Because you need to look at those applications properly, not least to try and filter out those who are not entitled to asylum in the UK. And the quicker you look at them, surely that increases the chances that you will greenlight them and grant asylum when perhaps there are questions.
Well, we grant asylum to more than half at the moment. I mean, this problem, this is a sort of I wouldn't start from here argument, I'm afraid. But this problem dates back to a couple of years ago when we approved, let's take Albanians, the biggest single category. We approved 55% of the Albanians who arrived here, whilst Sweden, a perfectly decent, civilized country, approved zero. And they never had a single ECHR or ECJ problem because they'd written the law properly to be compliant with international law. And as a result, you're an Albanian gangster. One country takes zero, another country takes 55%. Which one are you going to try and send your customers to? And that's what happened.
And that was the decision of a Conservative-led Home Office in the wake of Brexit. Control our borders. You were one of those people arguing that Brexit would give that kind of control. And instead we had a decision like that made in the years after Brexit.
Yeah, it was a non-decision made in effect because, and the difficulty, of course, is that the approvals weren't even proper, weren't even under proper law because there was no need to approve even a single Albanian asylum seeker because Albania is a safe country, and that's why.
That's why I say there was a decision to allow those applications, wasn't there? Because you could have looked at that right at the beginning and think this is just not a country for which we'll grant asylum.
That's the problem, and I don't know, to be frank, who made that decision, whether it was made by a minister or it was made internally to the system. But what it tells you is that the system itself is not working properly, that's functioning properly, because if you are approving more than half of the people come from a completely safe country, then there's something broken in that system, and that's that I think is what we've seen. And as I say, you add that. I mean, I spoke to, just to give you a sort of measure of it, I spoke to a past permanent secretary at the Home Office, actually a rather good one, and I said to him, I said, where does this problem come from? And he said, well, actually, it's a management problem. It's a failure of management in the Home Office. It's not even a ministerial issue. It's a simple, not simple, a straightforward management problem. Yeah. And that's the problem. I mean, you've got this right across the board. You've got it in as you've seen it with the Libby barge, which, I mean, what sort of person, what sort of system approves a barge without having a safety check? I mean, it's sort of, you wonder what the competence level of both the contractor and the direct manager of this was.
Yeah, but you've been part of government fairly recently. You served as Brexit Secretary. You argued that Brexit would control our borders. And yet what we're seeing now is this level of 100,000 arrivals on these small boats in the course of the last 5 years. This has been a Conservative failure, hasn't it?
Well, it's been a failure of the system. I mean, I can't pin down because
who leads the system? Which party in government leads the system?
Of course. But if you're trying to analyse this issue and make it work, just firing, political sort of jibe backwards and forwards won't solve the problem. The people of Britain want this problem solved. Now, as I said, I referred to John Reed's comment some years ago that this system is not fit for purpose. Well, they managed. The Perm Secretary I was talking to managed to get that into a better place, but it's obviously slid backwards. And you've got a system. How on earth do you make any system work if the caseworker only handles effectively one case a week? No system will work under those circumstances. So you have to make that work, and so far it's not happening.
And do you think that would stop the boats? It wouldn't, would it? Because it just means that when you arrive, you'll get asylum quicker.
Not instantaneously. No, you shouldn't get asylum quicker. Look, as I say, the biggest numbers coming in are Albanians, followed, I think, by Afghans, but certainly Albanians. Now, none of those should get asylum at all. None. There'll be an argument about modern slavery, but you can deal with that by taking them back. There's a deal with Albania done now. So you can accelerate the system. But until you've got that under control, any attempt to have a deterrence policy, which is what Rwanda about. I don't approve of that, but nevertheless, that's what the House of Commons has agreed. Any attempt to make that work will fail, because your system is not delivering people for decision. The decision then is put off. If you put off a decision on asylum for a year or whatever, it's almost certain the person will disappear, particularly if they're not actually legitimate asylums. They will disappear into the community, and you'll lose track of them. So you've got to start by making the system work. You've got to start by making the management of the system and the operation of the system work.
David Davis, MP, thank you very much.